my dad was like, I don't know about them evil spirits. Talking to these kids from beyond. You got a demon up on that show. Are you ready, big dog?
I'm ready.
Did I even tell you what we're
ready.
doing?
Nope.
Welcome to Kansas QB, a podcast about growing up in rural Kansas, hosted by two former high school quarterbacks. And now, here are your manly hosts, Steve Jewell and Tyler Martin.
Yee-haw!
Ride 'em, cowboy.
Growing up in the cornfields of the Sunflower State, we were inseparable. Brothers from different mothers who also happen to be sisters. Our moms, not us. Decades later, he's in Iowa, and I'm in Missouri, but we'll always have Kansas, and we'll always be the QB. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the show. I'm Steve. He's Tyler, and today's episode is entitled Circle Square 1. Hey, Tyler, I got smacked in the face this week with baseball. It's early February. We have a snow day today at SJCS, and I am thinking thoughts about baseball.
Well, oh, how quickly the seasons change. It's, it's funny. You guys had some snow on the day we're recording. We had nothing up here. Everything around us did, but seriously though, Case has been practicing for about a month now. Maddie has had baseball, still basketball practice and games. Maddie has had softball, pitching and hitting all winter long. They both have practices tonight. It's I guess it's here now. Nothing that we ever did when we were young, but wow.
That's
here
crazy.
we go.
So Case has been practicing for a month. Is he on a travel team?
They play tournaments. I mean, yes, what we would consider a travel team. Yes, they don't go like crazy all over the Midwest, but
Yeah.
A lot of the same guys that play on his basketball team and baseball team, same coaches that do a good job with these guys. They have, I mean, we're in Des Moines, so as you know, it's hard to find space to practice anything a lot, gym wise, turf wise. So they've been in cages up in Ankeny, which is near Des Moines, for about a month now. And yeah, I mean, but then you get to you play some of these teams that literally do this year round, and it's like, holy cow! If we're not doing that, someone else is doing that, and we're falling behind. Which is
it is tough. It's tough being a dad, especially a sports dad, where you're like, okay, we don't need to make this where we make our entire lives about following our kids around in their sports, but at the same time, you want them to be in a position to succeed. So, like, where's the fine line? And for us, we're more football, maybe me, football, basketball kind of guy. Baseball, we loved it. We had a lot of fun playing. And now that we have actually a baseball team at St. Joe Christian since 2017, it's like, okay, well, this is actually preparing you for high school now. So I want you to be good at it. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, Jackson's probably going to be a track guy anyway. He likes running long distances. And so it's kind of like, if they don't let him play both sports, is it worth doing it during basketball, which is kind of a sport he's really good at and one I really like? I don't know. It's hard to find the balance.
The thing about Iowa, where I'm at, is it's the only state in the country where high school softball and baseball, it's a summer sport. Like it's after school is out, so it doesn't coincide with any other sport. So every school has it, and it's a big deal for all the schools. You have time to do it. Like, it would have been awesome when we were growing up. One, if Midway would have had baseball, but it's that way where, hey, you have to be hitting and pitching and doing everything right now because we're getting ready. You're going to play baseball. You have that opportunity. It doesn't overlap. This is one sport that the only thing you're going to miss is
baseball.
Yeah. Well, you have to do. Yeah, you have. Well, in our house, you have to do track.
Of course. Two former D2 track athletes. You're going to run track, son. Sorry, Maddie.
Steph, she was a D1 track athlete too, by the way. So
she was a D1 track athlete?
Yeah. She was at Iowa State for 3 years. She was a two-sport athlete at Iowa State. Steph started at Iowa State, volleyball and track. Know that. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, she's a stud.
So another reason to get you in St. Joe, bring my kids. So As always, you can find the audio version of Kansas QB on nearly every podcasting platform on the planet, and the video version on the Jewel Media LLC YouTube channel. Tyler, we had our first subscriber-only podcast on Friday. How'd you think that went?
It was fun. I mean, it was a little more laid back. You did a lot of legwork up front for the extra stuff, but it was kind of more conversational, a little more, I don't want to say behind the scenes because we didn't do anything like that, but yeah, me and you talked a little bit more in depth about some things. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Sure. I don't know. Like, well, I'll wait and see how the production comes out, but I thought it went well.
Yeah, I think we weren't as scared of pauses, and I didn't feel the need.
Yeah.
When I was looking at editing it, I didn't really feel the need to really cover up those pauses with edits and things. Yeah. So yeah, a little more laid back. That was fun. It was fun. We're basically talking to our 5 or 6 biggest fans, and I mean, they're kind of supporting the show, so totally worth it to me to do an extra episode for those folks.
Absolutely.
So we want to thank them, of course, for continuing to sponsor us. And if you're out there and you want to sponsor us, just like our friend Matt, Mike Hubble, Carmen of Midway, and my man Jonah, and of course Mark and Nancy, you can always just head on over to www.patreon.com/KansasQB. And of course, we would love for you also to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Jewel Media LLC. We're not quite yet to the point, Tyler, where we've got a Kansas QB channel. So right now it's in my other channel, which is, pretty much had nobody following it already anyway. So it's like it's its own thing, with the Kansas QB stuff. Just remember, if you're looking for it, it's not Jewel Media. It's Jewel Media LLC. There's a very nice, seemingly nice lady in New York that already had Jewel Media on the YouTube channel. So yeah. I'm Jewel Media LLC. Don't forget the LLC. Otherwise, you're subscribing to some other lady's content. Who knows what that's going to be like.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, the first time that I looked it up without the LLC, yeah, it's not you.
It's
definitely put the LLC on.
The good news is, just one look at her profile picture, that's not Steve. So it's pretty figured to kind of, figure that out. But, also, anytime you can download our show on your favorite podcasting platform, that really helps us out.
Yes. Hey, do you smell that, Steve?
Smell what?
It smells like news that has already been broken.
Broken news.
As we like to say, if it ain't broken, it ain't news. Breaking news is for tryhards, and we no longer have stamina for that kind of effort. I almost didn't hit the button. Oh my goodness, for that kind of effort. So we take stories that have already been broken and share them with the folks at home. This is why we need a producer. Where's producer Jack today when you need him? Have you heard about this, Tyler? According to an article that appeared at the, I'm sure, very popular 80sbaby.net website, James Earl Jones, who, famous for a lot of things, but for me, being a Star Wars nerd, definitely for Darth Vader's voice, played the chief of a police-esque department of mathematicians in a show called MathNet that aired as the final segment on an after-school sketch variety show called Square One.
Yeah, and I completely forgot that was him.
Yeah.
Until I read through this, and I was like, holy cow. Side note, the thing that I will always remember James Earl Jones for was being the voice of the Reading Rainbow episode. He read the book, The Rain on Kapiti Plain.
That is, okay, first of all, the fact that you remember that is a little scary, because that's a very specific memory. But secondly, good call on the Reading Rainbow, because that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Right?
So the article entitled Square One Television calls the PBS children's educational variety show smooth, well done, and largely underappreciated. According to the article, hang in there for this one, Tyler. We'll read this in a normal voice. If you want a British accent, you can go to the paid subscriber version. Square One was way more fun and interesting than a show about math had any right to be, and was a better version of a sketch show than should have appeared as PBS children's programming. It's one of PBS's late 1980s, early 90s staples, and holds up as a valuable teaching tool today.
Yeah, I remember everything that they say, how they phrased it. That's very, very accurate. Going back and watching a couple of them to get ready for this, now, just like anything, you'd think like, wow, this is outdated. But thinking back on it now, it really was, those transitions were good.
Yeah.
This does not look like it should be on PBS. Like,
Yeah.
this should be for every brat to watch.
Well, of course, so we did season 1, we did a shows we watched episode, and we didn't talk about this particular segment of shows that we watched. And afterwards, Becky called us on it. Your sister said, what? I thought you were going to talk about Square One. I was like, oh my goodness, we didn't talk about PBS. And for us, it was PBS and TVN. Like, those were the two, like, public over the airwaves, because we didn't have cable. So those are the shows that we watched as kids. And as you know, as I was like remembering this, like, okay, we need to do Square One, also, Circle Square, Gospel Bill kind of episode. I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna go back and just watch this. I didn't have time to do it, but I did it anyway. I just to see the intro and see what I thought about it. And I was fully expecting something so cheesy and terrible. But you're right, and this article is right. Square One, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of cheese factor to it because you're looking at something from the late 80s. But it was really well done. And I was even entertained. And something interesting in the article, they talked about how at the time it got criticism for being a little too fast and not giving enough weight to the different elements and not being critical enough with the way it presents the topics. But as the author mentioned of this article, if you watch it now, it's like, it's kind of slow. Like it's funny, it's well done, but nowadays with kids' educational program, we'll talk about some stuff from nowadays. It's kind of for that kind of new generation of kid that doesn't have the same kind of attention span that we were supposed to have had back in the day, and with 3-second cuts. And you look back, and if you looked at the Roman numerals, which I remembered that little song where the guy's up there and he's singing I and I. And it's like, no, baby, here in Rome we say 1 and we say 2 is the Roman numerals, right? And like, oh, okay, baby, I got you. Also, it was a long deal. They went all the way through 10, and they assumed that you were smart enough to follow along with that as a young elementary kid, and it was so long. I was like, how did this hold our attention spans back then? Because today, you'd never have such a long segment.
No, but I think part of that has to do with how much TV and our kids are used to watching. Back then, like, you could have put, an egg frying and just an egg frying as a commercial, and you'd be raptured. Enraptured. Like, how am I supposed to say
enraptured? That's good. Yeah,
enraptured.
Yeah.
I was supposed to say enraptured with this one commercial with just an egg frying, and my eyes haven't moved and I know it's going to say, "This is your brain on drugs" at the end, but I didn't stop staring. So now our kids are used to staring at the screen, so but back in the day, we didn't watch TV all the time. It was like a treat for us to watch. We get to watch a full half an hour episode before we get kicked out of the house. Sweet.
Not bad.
I'm watching every second of it.
I think you're right, Tyler. I think you're onto something.
The things we remember.
We're getting older, and we've already forgotten more than we ever knew. And I keep not hitting the button at the right time. But if you're listening to this on the audio podcast, you'll have no idea, so I don't know why I mentioned it. We've already forgotten more than we ever knew, but some memories still cling to our brain parts, like George Franklin's wig to his large head when he and his partner went undercover as musicians in the math band The Googles. This list includes memories from our time growing up in Kansas. Let's see just how well we can remember. In the Broken News segment, we learned that Square One was an underappreciated educational gem of the late 80s and early 90s that taught kids to appreciate math. Tyler, what other educational television did we watch as kids that helped make us the well-adjusted, intelligent humans that we are today?
Oh, that's okay. So when we're talking us watching TV, it was after school. And not just like the after school special shows, so on like channel 11 or channel 19, like basically
channel 11 and 19, that was PBS. One was KTWU, the other one's KCPTV or something like that. One was Kansas City, one came out somewhere in Kansas, like Loyola, Fort Scott, Chanute.
No.
You remember that?
Iola, not Loyola.
Okay, Iola. Okay, Iola,
Scott.
Fort Scott, Chanute. How many times did we hear that at the end of some PBS?
Exactly.
So we had to do 11 and 19. Continue.
Yeah, and one of them played. I can't remember. Was it after school? One of them played like the reruns of like after school programming, like the Leave It to Beaver, Beverly Hillbillies. Gosh, what were the other ones that they'd play? Those types of flicks. What
As
our
we got
parents
older,
watched.
that was 38 Family Greats. Remember 38, Channel 38? That was where I always played those old ones. I didn't remember KCPTV or KTWU playing that.
Okay,
I remember them playing the PBS stuff. So
this could also be
it's been a while. It's been a while. But that wasn't all, Tyler. You were getting ready to tell me we watched another station also. What number station was that?
11.
Well, no.
But we watched.
What was the other thing we
station?
watched?
After school, TBN.
Yeah. TBN, what's your channel?
Like wasn't it 11?
No, that was KTWU was 11. Come on, buddy. You can do this. The people listening to the podcast right now that grew up in Benina and Denton and really anywhere, they're like, wait, he doesn't know what channel this was? TBN, what was TBN on?
50.
50 was the other Christian station. Okay. 16 was TBN. I can't believe that was 16. Come on.
That's even your number. Like when we were
Joe
little,
Montana,
that was your
baby.
number.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So 16 was TBN. And TBN, for those of us that kind of grew up in that time and were, in the Christian realm of things, there's some baggage with TBN. A little baggage there. But the kids programming was pretty great. The kids programming was pretty great. So some of those, and we mentioned the episode is called Circle Square One. So the article is about Square One, and that was KTWU, Channel 11, as you mentioned, PBS. Circle Square was a Canadian show that ran in the late 80s, and it continued to run, I think, till like 92 on TBN. And it was a show that had where the kids obviously learned different virtues and lessons, but there's puppets, there was singing, skits and sketches, and at the end, letters from viewers. Now, there's a show, Tyler, that if you go back and watch it, you think, what am I watching? And how in the world was this entertaining?
Oh, no.
But we loved it.
No, we did. And this was more, this wasn't like after school. This was like Saturday morning.
It might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. This was like Saturday, because after school was like PBS. That was the one where and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the Circle Square was like Saturday morning programming. Mm-hmm. And Gospel Bill kind of, he was kind of the one that let it off. And I was always, and it started like at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like they had to get the kids shows out of the way so that on now on 16 that I remember on channel 16 you could get ready for 4 hours of church.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but how great was Gospel Bill? Forget Circle Square for a moment. How great was Gospel Bill? I mean, for several reasons. I was into it because it was the only Christian programming that had cowboys involved. The only thing that had horses and guns and hey, how about that? Guns in this Christian that's what made it so great. Looking back, I'm like, you would never do programming like were there these like the preacher guy is shooting people like for a Christian kids outreach program. Like this is amazing. And even in their promo, like leading up to it, like their trailers and stuff, Gospel Bill's turning around, pulling out a 6-shooter, and he's shooting people in the belly, like gut shot. Down goes the bad guy. And so I love that show because, I grew up watching Westerns with my dad. I know you enjoyed anything cowboy related. Yep. And so you kind of got that in kind of a kid-friendly, I mean, there's no blood. I mean, people would grab their belly and fall over, so you probably couldn't get away with that so much today, but you did back then. But you had Nicodemus, his trusty deputy, who I always liked him. You got the gospel at the end of every show, which, that was great. But I loved Elmer. You remember Miss Lana at their general store? But Elmer was my favorite. He was the guy with the mustache, the big guy, and he was hilarious. He talked with that Southern accent that's kind of supposed to be a Western accent, but also Southern. Loved Elmer. He was hilarious.
It felt like Gospel Bill was a vacation Bible school theme.
Yeah.
And every week it would be something that the people putting on a vacation Bible school this would be the sketch that they do at the beginning and the sketch they do at the end. Mm-hmm. And Miss Lana was the one that would read the Bible verses and truly tell them why they need to do this. And the music got quieter, and you felt like, oh, I need to listen to Lana. But my sleep schedule when I was little, for whatever reason, I would wake up, go in there early in the morning, but I got there right at the end as Gospel Bill was doing the final demonstration, and I very rarely got up early enough to watch like the whole thing. And I remember being so disappointed all the time. Like I missed the Cowboy stuff. Now I got to do is learn the good stuff.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And they had live horses. Like it was a legit show. Like I don't know how that show even happened. Like I'm impressed because usually Christian entertainment, especially back then, wasn't always great. But that was pretty good. I think the other one we have to point out is, and this was on Channel 50. This was by the Lutheran something or other. Was Davy and Goliath, which was basically a Christian. Davy, a Christian Gumby. It was claymation, stop motion claymation, and you had this boy and his dog and all their various adventures. We loved that, and that was Saturday morning programming a little later on, so we usually caught that.
Well, that was complete rerun programming because Davy and Goliath originally aired like in the 50s.
No. Yeah, it was in syndication, but we loved it because again, Gumby was popular at the time still, and so that was pretty great. Now, on to the educational public TV stuff. Back to PBS. Some other classics that we saw, and add to this list. This is just the list I came up with.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. I mean, those are staples.
Those were.
But talking about after-school programming, how about Where in the World is Carmen San Diego?
That was like must watch, and we were every day like, if I could only be on this. Remember, and then at the end when they had to go like actually put the big cones on where they thought they were, and they had to get to the right capital or do this, and I was so upset every time that people were not fast enough. Like, dude, just go guess. Just if you would just run fast, doesn't matter if just go on everything. Like you could get it done, and if you're smart, like. You could get it done really quickly, but
and if you won
in the world,
if you won, you could go anywhere in the domestic United States, like in the contiguous United States, you could go travel. Like it was a really cool prize.
I just remember, as I look back on that, I'm still not sure how that prize worked. We're giving a kid a trip to anywhere.
Yeah, it might have been that the parents had to pay their way. I don't know. All I know is that those gumshoes, they're called gumshoes. I remember that Kevin always knew the answer. He was so good at geography. I'm terrible at geography. My wife is great at geography. Like the two of them on that show would have been great. And I would have just been going like, I don't know, North Carolina? Is that in the United States? But also one of the things I loved about that show was rockapella. Remember rockapella? Sing jail. Remember that whole thing with the acapella group?
In that was the world is Carmen San Diego. I mean, they're the one that sang it.
Bop, 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 do, or something like I don't know. It was so good.
Yeah, like they did all the. Yeah, it was. That was.
Have you seen it?
That was probably my favorite. That was probably my favorite after school show because you had to think about it. Yeah,
I was more square one. Because do you remember our Math Man?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, it's like Pac-Man, this little green guy, little number munchers guy with a Michigan Wolverines helmet on. You remember he didn't have the face mask, but he'd walk and glitch. Which he'd have to go and he'd have to answer these questions. We were so into video games, but couldn't have a system. You had the system. We were not allowed to have it. So just watching that little guy run around, we're like, oh, it's like we're playing a video game. And, he was doing math. We liked math. Kevin was better at it than I was, but we were both pretty good at it. And so, love that. But I was more square one, but Carmen San Diego was more my brother's thing. And it was really, really good. So
the biggest thing about it, like we weren't, again, it's not like our parents were saying, hey, it's okay for you to watch a lot of TV, but we could watch that because it was educational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we thought it was awesome. We didn't know if there was anything else on. That's the only thing we were allowed to watch.
Now, how about this one? This one's on the border, Tyler. Remember Ghostwriter? Because
I do.
It was educational. It was like an English program, like English language.
And I loved it. I loved it. That was my beginning of liking to write and the differences in how you can construct a sentence.
Yeah.
Now
it was great. It was great, but you remember the problem?
It had ghost in the name.
It had a ghost. And so, being in the contemporary Christian home at the time, and still in one, my dad was like, I don't know about them evil spirits talking to these kids from beyond. Well, you got a demon up on that show, you know. So that one was kind of like you didn't want to make a big deal about the fact you're watching. Like, oh yeah, it's on, whatever. I happen to be in here, and I'm just kind of watching, but it's whatever. You know, I'm not into this whole ghost thing.
Yeah,
was it like that in the Martin house? It was that way at the Jewel house.
That was what I was going to bring up, and I when I think of watching after school programming for whatever reason, it's at your house. Like it was in that era of we went to your house after school,
right?
During different seasons of parents coaching ball at whatever age we were in, and it just seemed like when it was time to go to our house, like we were in the country, and it was not basketball with we all stayed at the school inside for practice to shoot or do whatever. We weren't around there. So if we did go to our house, it was during the warmer time, like during the springtime probably, and it's time to get back outside. So if we're at our house, you're not inside watching TV. You're kicked out of the house.
Right. Yep.
And not that it wasn't that way at your house, but I do remember it being, when I think of Ghostwriter, Where in the World is Carmen San Diego, Circle Square, any of that stuff, when I think of it that way, I think of sitting in your living room watching the tiny brown TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think, too, was the fact that you had, during football season, we could get away with it with Mom. She loves watching Dad.
Yeah.
So there was that.
Yeah.
Other ones, obviously, Sesame Street. I mentioned that one, Mr. Rogers. But also Lamb Chops Play Along.
Yeah, where kids come to play along.
And Fun Things is all we ever do. And you know, and that one, Charlie Horsing, this is a song that never ends. Remember that? Man.
Okay. So Charlie Horse was so annoying, but I felt obligated to stick up for him because his name was Charlie Horse.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, he was your guy. He was your guy because of the horse part, for sure.
Oh, he was annoying.
So, I mean, to take it into today, Tyler, last thing we'll talk about here before we go, what are our kids watching on PBS? Because PBS is still a thing. TBN, not so much. Now we use Right Now Media for kind of the Christian side of things, and we have some things that we watch on there. What are you guys watching? What's being watched in the Martin household?
We haven't had any type of cable TV or satellite anything for a long. I mean, we've got the streaming services that really don't work well at our house because of the internet. But for us, it is all over the air transmitted stuff. So PBS is on it all the time. Wildcrats isn't as popular as it was when Maddie was little. I don't think, but Wildcrats was fun. I liked who's the guy? The cat. The outdoorsy
the nature adventure guy.
Nature
Cat.
Is it Nature
Cat?
Cat?
Cat. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Nature Cat, although he was kind of annoying. But Super Y, Peg plus Cat is now kind of the math thing.
I loved Pig plus Cat, and nothing made me sadder than when my wife said, I just can't watch this show. It cannot be on the background because there's a lot of yelling. It's got a little Dora Explorer kind of feel to it, where it's like there's a lot of yelling. Yeah. I love Pig plus Cat. I think it's genius, but we don't watch it anymore. But we did. Did you guys ever watch Super Y back in the day? And Word Girl, Martha Speaks? Those are all like the word ones.
Word Girl, I enjoyed with Maddie when she was younger. And just to brag on her, she read like when she was 3.
Right.
And so Word Girl for her, she grew out of very quickly. Like, this is way too easy. We can't do that. Super Y, Super Reader, Super. Like, that was cool. Odd Squad was one that has always been kind of weird, but I'm like, if I have to watch something, I guess we'll watch that. It wasn't my, it's weird, man. It's in the name, but.
And then Sid the Science Kid's one that we watched, but you said Wildcrats is something you did back in the past with Maddie. Yeah. Wildcrats is the show for Jackson Jewell. And Jackson is a math guy, right? But he loves Wildcrats. And to this day, if you want to ask anybody in our house about random animal facts, he memorizes those Wildcrats shows. And he'll say that he'll correct people. He'll correct adults on their misuse of what the natural habitat is for the painted dog. Like, he'll correct you on that because he loves Wildcrats. And if we let him, he would watch Wildcrats all day, every day, which we obviously don't let him, but he totally would.
Does the habitat for painted dogs come up regularly in adult conversation?
More than you would think, Tyler. More than you would think. Now, obviously, there's some bonus stuff here. My kids, if you're out there and you're like, wow, this is an interesting conversation. What can I do to help my kid be better at math? I'm going to go right now and put my plug in for Team Umizoomi. Now, I don't know how much Team Umizoomi had to do with how good my son is at math, but he never brings home math homework. He's 100% on all of his assignments. He is a math whiz. He's a lot like his older, my older brother, his uncle, than he is like me. And I say it's probably 50-50, whether it's because of him or because of Team Umizoomi. He loved that show so much, and he would do the math right along with the Team Umizoomi characters. That was Nickelodeon, so it doesn't really count. Bubble Guppies is another one. They call it educational TV. I don't think it was that educational. I mean, it was okay as a show, but it wasn't that educational. And then, of course, probably the show that my kids have learned the most from, for good or for ill, is probably Bluey. Because the way that they play with their imagination, like all the time, they'll do things. I'm like, that's super clever. My kids are super clever. And then a week later, I'll see it on Bluey. I'm like, they stole that from Bluey. My kids aren't that clever. Darn it.
No, that's clearly is the winner in our house. I mean, it's got the stamp of approval from Kansas QB. So
it has Kansas QB
obviously that
stamp of approval.
Yeah. And actually our youngest birthday party, he's 6 turning 7, and we have to get the cupcakes the exact right blue color and orange color for this upcoming birthday, because he wants to do it so Bingo fans and Bluey fans can have their favorite cupcakes.
That's what we call good parenting. Well, that does it for things we remember. As we reach the lightning round in the Carmen San Diego game of life, we are just thrilled that we remembered something. Kansas QB is a production of the Jewel Media Podcasting Network. And before we go, we want to thank Tracy of Tracy Lindley Voiceovers for the way too professional audio. And of course, I would like to thank Tyler for clearing time in his busy schedule to talk about Circle Square One.
Okay, before we do the last thing, do you remember the Mountain Dew commercial that was Davy and Goliath?
Oh, yeah.
Where was it Petey, his friend? Yeah, and then they were fighting over the can, and then the dad drank it and then walked off, and what just happened? No, Tommy, what just happened, Tommy? And we got hosed, Davy. We got hosed. Or no, Tommy, we got whatever it was. Anyways.
Can't believe they did that to Davy and Goliath. Well, that's enough of that. For Tyler, I'm Steve, wishing you big fun in your small town.